You find yourself at the dawn of a conflict that will be remembered for millennia. The sun is rising over the great expanse of the Persian Empire, stretching from the valleys of Mesopotamia to the shores of Asia Minor, from the rugged mountains of Central Asia to the rich riverlands of Egypt. To you, it feels like the very earth is groaning under the weight of this empire, the largest the world has yet seen. It is ruled by Xerxes, son of Darius, heir to a dynasty that has bent countless peoples into submission. For Xerxes, Greece is not just another province to conquer. It is an affront to Persian pride, a small but stubborn land that had dared defy the empire before. You recall how it began with Darius, Xerxes' father. The Greeks had supported rebellious Ionian cities along the coast of Asia Minor, cities that resented Persian domination. That rebellion had been crushed, but the Persians remembered who had fanned the flames. When Darius sought vengeance, he launched an invasion across the Aegean. Yet on the plain of Marathon, a generation earlier, the Athenians had stood their ground and thrown back the Persians in a shocking victory. That memory is still alive for you, and it stings the pride of Persia as much as it swells the pride of Greece. Now, Xerxes is determined to succeed where his father failed. He marshals an army not of thousands, but of hundreds of thousands, drawn from every corner of his vast empire. You hear tales of men from India, clothed in cotton and carrying bows, standing alongside warriors from Egypt with their shields of woven reeds, and nomadic horsemen from the steppes with their curved bows and swift steeds. Each subject people brings its own weapons, its own armor, its own culture, and together they form a mosaic of power. To you, it feels like the world itself is converging on Greece. This gathering storm is not only a matter of armies and weapons. It is also a clash of worldviews. Persia represents empire, hierarchy, and obedience to a king who rules by divine right. Greece represents something different, independent city-states, fractious and quarrelsome, but fiercely proud of their autonomy. Each polis, whether Athens, Sparta, or Corinth, jealously guards its freedom and way of life. To them, Persian conquest is not just a loss of territory, it is a death sentence for their independence. As Xerxes prepares his campaign, you can almost see the great construction efforts underway. The bridging of the Hellespont with floating pontoons to carry his army into Europe, the cutting of a canal through Mount Athos to ensure his navy can pass without risk. These are not mere acts of strategy, they are statements of power, declarations that no natural barrier will stand in the way of Persia's will. The resources, manpower, and engineering skill marshaled for this campaign stagger your imagination. For the Greeks, the threat is both terrifying and galvanizing. You imagine the debates in Athens, where men like Themistocles argue passionately for building a strong navy, for preparing to fight not only on land, but at sea. You picture the councils of Sparta, where kings and ephors deliberate with grim resolve, weighing duty, tradition, and the risk of annihilation. Across the Greek world, temples are filled with supplicants, priests interpret omens, and citizens argue in the agora. Some cities consider submission, others waver in fear. But for Sparta and Athens, resistance is the only choice. You understand that what lies ahead is not merely a military confrontation, but a defining struggle between freedom and subjugation, between the fragile independence of the Greek city-states and the overwhelming might of an empire that has never known defeat on this scale. The Persians come with arrogance and confidence, the Greeks with desperation and determination. The collision of these forces is inevitable, and you are being drawn toward it, as if fate itself were calling you to witness what is to come. The stage is set, the players are gathering, and the world holds its breath. You can almost hear the rumble of marching feet, the creak of oarlocks, the roar of countless voices raised in unison. The rising Persian threat is no longer distant, it is upon you. You turn your gaze from Persia's endless expanse to the rugged patchwork of Greece, where the story takes on a different shape. Here there is no vast empire under one ruler, no single command binding together millions. Instead, there are city-states, proud and independent, each with its own laws, traditions, and ambitions. They quarrel with one another constantly, sometimes over land, sometimes over pride, and at other times over nothing more than wounded honor. Yet when the shadow of Persia looms, you sense how their rivalries must bend before survival. In Athens, the memory of Marathon is alive in every citizen. You can almost walk through the agora and hear men recounting how the hoplites had charged across the plain, how the Persians had broken and fled. The victory is etched into Athenian identity, proof that free men can defeat an empire. But you also hear voices warning that Marathon was not the end, only the beginning. Among them stands Themistocles, a sharp-eyed strategist who sees what many do not. He urges his fellow Athenians to look not only to their walls and their hoplite army, but to the sea. Persia, he argues, will come with a navy, vast and deadly, and it is there that the fate of Greece may be decided. His insistence leads Athens to pour newfound wealth into building a fleet of triremes, sleek wooden warships with 3 banks of oars, designed to ram and sink enemy vessels. Sparta, by contrast, is a land where war is the foundation of society itself. Every Spartan boy is trained from childhood to fight, to endure, to die if necessary in the service of the state. You picture the harsh barracks, the discipline, the iron hardness of their lives. Sparta is not a city of debate like Athens, but of duty. When word of the Persian advance spreads, it is Sparta to whom many Greeks turn for leadership. The Spartans are respected and feared, their reputation as warriors unmatched. To them falls the task of holding the line. Elsewhere, the Greek world reacts in confusion and division. Some city-states cowed by Persian might send tokens of submission, earth and water, to Xerxes as symbols of obedience. Others hesitate, waiting to see who will prevail before choosing sides. The unity that Greece so desperately needs seems fragile, threatened by the same fractious independence that defines it. You imagine the council at Corinth, where delegates from different cities gather to discuss alliance. The hall is filled with suspicion, old grudges, and fiery rhetoric. Yet here, for the first time, a Hellenic league is formed, a fragile union bound by necessity. They pledge to fight together, to defend their homeland. Themistocles of Athens and the Spartan leadership argue for strategy, where to stand, how to use their smaller numbers against Persia's endless host. Though they do not yet agree on everything, one thing is certain: you feel it as a current in the air. Greece will resist. And yet resistance does not come without doubt. The oracle of Delphi, the voice of Apollo himself, is consulted. The priests return with words cloaked in mystery, warning that only the death of a Spartan king can save Greece, and that Athens must trust in its wooden walls. Interpretations swirl. Some believe wooden walls mean the fortifications of the Acropolis. Themistocles insists it refers to ships. The Spartans, grim-faced, take the prophecy to heart, for they know what it demands: a sacrifice. As Persian armies march closer, as their fleet gathers, you sense the tension in every Greek household. Farmers wonder if their fields will burn. Mothers wonder if their sons will return. Leaders wonder if their choices will echo in glory or ruin. Greece has little time, and the storm is moving fast. In this cauldron of fear and resolve, the seeds of Thermopylae are sown. It is not simply a matter of armies, but of wills, of decisions made by men who know they may never live to see the outcome. In every council, every camp, every temple, you feel the weight of what is coming. The city-states, so often at odds, must find in themselves a rare unity. For only together can they hope to stand against the empire that approaches, vast as the sea, relentless as time. Now your eyes turn eastward again, to the heart of the Persian juggernaut. You are no longer in the fractured world of Greek politics, but among the colossal preparations of Xerxes, who intends to march not with a mere army, but with a tide of humanity. You can almost feel the ground tremble beneath the weight of it all. The numbers themselves are staggering. Though ancient accounts often swell them beyond belief, even conservative estimates speak of hundreds of thousands of soldiers, sailors, and camp followers. From every corner of the empire they come, summoned by the command of a single man. You can picture the spectacle. Columns of soldiers in brilliant array, armor gleaming beneath the sun, banners fluttering in the wind, voices chanting in dozens of tongues. You see Persians in their scale armor with wicker shields, Medes with spears and bows, Assyrians with iron helmets and short swords, Egyptians with axes and chariots, Indians with cotton tunics and war elephants, and Scythians wild and fearsome with their curved bows and fur-lined cloaks. It is not just an army, it is a living map of the empire. A parade of nations united under the authority of Xerxes, and Xerxes himself, towering in splendor, is at the center of it all. He sits upon a golden throne when the army assembles, his crown a symbol of absolute power. To his subjects, he is more than a king. He is the King of Kings, ruler by divine mandate, a figure whose authority reaches across continents. Yet you sense something more fragile beneath the pomp. For Xerxes, this campaign is not only about conquest, it is about vengeance. His father Darius had been humiliated at Marathon. Xerxes carries that wound like an inheritance, and it drives him to prove Persia's supremacy once and for all. The logistics alone stagger the imagination. Supply trains stretch for miles, carrying grain, water, and equipment. Engineers build roads, dig canals, and prepare bridges. You can almost hear the hammering and see the ropes tightening as the great bridge across the Hellespont takes shape. Two massive pontoon bridges, crafted from ships lashed together and covered with planks stretching across the waters between Asia and Europe. When the first attempt is swept away by a storm, Xerxes orders the sea itself whipped with chains, as if to punish nature for defying him. It is both madness and majesty, an emperor bending the world to his will. The navy that accompanies this army is equally immense. Thousands of ships, sleek triremes and heavy transports alike, follow along the coast. Their sails billow in the wind, their oars dip in rhythm, a floating arm of the empire that shadows the army's march. To you, the scale is overwhelming. Never before has such a force gathered to move against such a small and divided land. Yet with all its grandeur, the army has weaknesses. Sheer size creates problems. Supplies must be replenished constantly, and the land itself strains to feed so many mouths. Communication across such diverse peoples is slow, discipline uneven. You can almost sense how this great tide could, if resisted cleverly, be turned against itself. Still, to the Greeks awaiting its arrival, the Persian host must have seemed invincible, unstoppable, like a wave that would simply sweep them away. As Xerxes' forces march across Thrace and Macedonia, subduing or intimidating cities as they go, the world watches. The air grows heavy with the inevitability of confrontation. The clash between the disciplined phalanxes of Greece and the vast multitudes of Persia is no longer a question of if, but when. And as you stand in imagination on the path of that great army, you feel both awe and dread. The might of Persia is not just physical, it is psychological. To stand against Xerxes is to stand against the illusion of inevitability, to resist the belief that one man and his empire can command the destiny of all. The Greeks know this, and it steels them, even as the horizon darkens with dust clouds from Persian feet. The grand army is coming, and with it the weight of an empire that believes itself eternal. Now you are drawn into the Spartan world, to a moment of resolve forged in iron discipline and grim necessity. At the center stands King Leonidas, a man whose name will echo long after the dust of battle settles. He is not merely a monarch, but a warrior shaped by a lifetime under Sparta's relentless code, the agouge. You see in him not just a king, but the embodiment of Spartan duty, for in his decision to march to Thermopylae lies the very soul of his people. The call has gone out to defend Greece, yet Sparta is bound by ritual and religion. The great festival of the Carneia is underway, a sacred observance that forbids the mobilization of the full Spartan army. But Leonidas knows there is no time to wait. The Persians advance swiftly, their numbers swelling with each step. The other Greeks look to Sparta for leadership, and hesitation could doom them all. So Leonidas makes a choice that balances faith, law, and survival. He will not call forth the entire Spartan force, but he will march with a hand-picked guard of 300 warriors, men who have sons to carry on their names, men prepared to die without hesitation. You see him gather these 300, their armor gleaming bronze, their shields round and solid, their spears long and deadly. Each one is trained from boyhood for this purpose, to hold the line, to stand unyielding. Yet they do not march alone. Alongside them come allies from across Greece, Thespians, Thebans, and others who know what is at stake. In total, a few thousand men will stand at Thermopylae, but it is the 300 Spartans who will carry the weight of legend. Before they march, the Delphic prophecy hangs heavy in Leonidas' mind, that only the death of a Spartan king can save Greece. He understands what it means, and though he says little, you sense he accepts his fate. It is not despair you see in him, but clarity. He knows that the sacrifice of the few may inspire the many, that a stand at Thermopylae could ignite the fire of resistance in all of Greece. The march itself is somber, yet resolute. You can almost hear the steady rhythm of their feet, the clatter of shields on shoulders, the calm songs of warriors who expect not to return. Along the road, villagers watch in awe, mothers and fathers whisper prayers, and children gaze wide-eyed at the bronze-clad Spartans. They are not an army marching to victory, they are a wall of flesh and steel prepared to hold back a flood. Thermopylae, the hot gates, lies ahead. Leonidas knows why it has been chosen. It is a narrow pass between steep mountains and the sea, a place where the Persian numbers will count for less, where Greek discipline and armor can resist the press of multitudes. It is both a battlefield and a bottleneck, a place where courage can amplify itself against overwhelming odds. In Leonidas' eyes, you see both the weight of command and the strange serenity of acceptance. He has no illusions. He knows the enemy is vast beyond counting. He knows that his force is small, that betrayal and encirclement are always possibilities. But he also knows that what they do here will be remembered, that their defiance will carry meaning even if they fall. As they approach Thermopylae, you sense the sharpening of purpose. Camps are made, defenses strengthened, allies greeted. The men share laughter, stories, and the quiet rituals of those who understand tomorrow may be their last. Leonidas walks among them, not as a distant king, but as one of their own, a leader who will stand in the shield wall beside them. This is no ordinary march, no ordinary deployment. It is the deliberate choice of a king to walk into legend, to fulfill prophecy with his own life if need be. In this moment, as the dust of their march settles on the road, you can feel history bending. The decision of Leonidas and his 300 Spartans is not only about Thermopylae, it is about the spirit of resistance, about showing the world that even the greatest empire can be challenged by the courage of the few. The stand is coming, and Leonidas is ready. Now you stand before the gates of Thermopylae, and the land itself tells you why this place was chosen. To your right stretches the Aegean Sea, its waters lapping against a narrow strip of shore. To your left rise steep mountains, rugged and unyielding, cutting off any easy passage inland. Between them lies the road, a narrow ribbon of earth hemmed in by cliffs and sea, just wide enough for a few chariots or a tight formation of soldiers. This is the bottleneck, the hot gates, the place where a small force can hold back a multitude. The name Hot Gates comes from the sulfur springs bubbling from the earth, the smell of minerals hanging in the air. You can almost feel the steam drifting across the pass, a reminder of the earth's restless power beneath your feet. The air is thick, the terrain uneven, and the passage so narrow in places that only a handful of men can fight shoulder to shoulder. Here, numbers count for little. Here, skill and discipline can outweigh sheer mass. As you take in the geography, you see why Leonidas chose this ground. The Persians may bring hundreds of thousands, but only so many can enter the pass at once. A line of hoplites, shields interlocked, spears bristling outward, can turn this passage into an impenetrable wall. Behind that wall stands not just bronze and muscle, but the will of men who know they fight for their homes, their freedom, and their names. You watch as the Greeks prepare. Trenches are dug, walls of stones and timber raised across the narrow road to strengthen their position. Camps are set up behind the line, but always with eyes fixed on the path from the north, where the Persian tide will soon appear. The Spartans drill with their allies, moving as one, their phalanx shifting with precision. Shields lock, spears thrust in rhythm, sandals stamp in unison. Every motion is a rehearsal for what is to come. The allies among them are diverse, Thespians, Phocians, Thebans, each with their own customs and fears. Yet, under Leonidas's command, they are bound together by necessity. You can sense the tension among them, for not all are as willing to die as the Spartans. Still, the narrowness of the pass gives them confidence. It is easier to believe in unity when the mountains themselves seem to join your side. Across the bay, you can almost glimpse the Persian fleet, sails dotting the horizon, while inland dust rises from the countless marching feet of Xerxes' army. The world's greatest power is moving toward this slender choke point, and you stand here with the men who will try to deny it passage. The quiet before battle carries its own weight. At night, the Greeks tend their fires, sharpen their blades, and whisper to the gods. Offerings are made to Artemis and Apollo, prayers muttered to Zeus for strength, to Ares for ferocity, to Hades for a peaceful welcome should death come. In the flickering firelight, you see faces set with determination, some with fear, others with grim serenity. They all know that tomorrow the silence will be shattered by the clash of bronze on bronze, by the cries of the dying, by the roar of war. It is not just strategy you feel here, but symbolism. Thermopylae is more than a pass. It is the gateway to Greece itself. If Persia breaks through, nothing will stop them from sweeping south, taking Athens, enslaving its people, crushing the spirit of independence that defines the land. But if Persia is held, even for a time, it proves that empire is not invincible. It proves that courage and resolve can shape the fate of nations. Standing in the shadows of the cliffs, with the salt of the sea in your nose, and the hiss of hot springs at your back, you realize how much rests on this narrow strip of earth. Thermopylae is not just geography. It is destiny. The hot gates will soon become a furnace of blood and valor, where the fate of freedom itself will be tested. The Persians are coming, the pass is ready, and you can feel in your bones that what happens here will echo through eternity. The waiting ends when the dust of Persia reaches the horizon. You hear it before you see it, the steady drum of marching feet, the rhythmic beat of hooves, the creak of wagons, the low hum of countless voices. Then they appear, the vanguard of Xerxes' host, soldiers stretching farther than the eye can see. The sheer scale is overwhelming. A wave of humanity pressing down upon the narrow gates where only a thin line of Greeks stands ready. Xerxes is confident. He expects this tiny force to scatter before his power, to crumble at the sight of his endless legions. So he waits, sending a herald to demand submission. The Greeks' reply is sharp, uncompromising. Leonidas will not surrender earth and water, nor bend knee to Persia. When ordered to lay down their weapons, the Spartans answer with words that cut through history. "Come and take them." Infuriated but unshaken, Xerxes unleashes the first wave. You see them coming, Medes and Scythians rushing forward, spears raised, shields clashing. The narrow pass funnels them into a tight column, stripping away the advantage of numbers. Then the Greeks advance, shields locked, spears thrusting in perfect rhythm. The clash is deafening, metal against wood, flesh against bronze. The Medes press forward, but the Spartan wall does not break. Their discipline holds, their long spears find gaps in Persian armor, and the tide of attackers crashes and recedes like waves against stone. Wave after wave follows. The immortals, Xerxes' elite guard, are sent into the fray, their reputation as the finest soldiers of Persia carried like a banner. Yet even they cannot break through. The Spartans fight with precision, falling back in practiced rotations so that fresh men are always at the front. When spears splinter, swords flash. When bodies pile up, they are dragged aside to keep the phalanx intact. The pass becomes a killing ground, the cries of the dying echoing against the cliffs. You watch as the Persians grow frustrated. Their numbers count for nothing here, their courage faltering against men who refuse to yield a single step. Xerxes, observing from his throne, cannot believe what he sees. His generals press more men into the bottleneck, but the result is the same. The Greeks hold. On the second day, the assaults intensify. Arrows darken the sky, but the Spartans crouch beneath their shields, the storm of missiles passing like rain. Cavalry is useless here, unable to maneuver in the narrow space. Again and again, Persia throws its strength against the wall of bronze, and again it shatters. The Greeks even launch counterattacks, driving the enemy back with ferocity, their war cries ringing out across the battlefield. The discipline of the Spartans is matched by their allies, who take turns in the line, their courage bolstered by Leonidas's presence. You can almost see him moving among them, steadying nerves, reminding each man that this battle is not only for themselves, but for all of Greece. Every moment they hold buys time for the cities to prepare, for Athens to ready its fleet, for the fragile alliance of the Hellenic League to harden into unity. To the Persians it must seem like madness that a handful of men can resist the world's greatest empire. To the Greeks it is proof that freedom can stand firm against tyranny, that resolve can bend the course of history. The pass is soaked in blood, the air thick with smoke and dust, the cries of battle never ceasing, and yet, through it all, the Spartans and their allies endure. By the close of the second day, Xerxes is enraged. His army, vast beyond measure, has been checked by a mere few thousand men. He cannot yet see how the battle will turn, but you feel the tension tightening. Thermopylae has become not just a fight of spears and shields, but of wills. The Persians throw themselves at the wall of men, and still it stands. The hot gates burn with the fury of combat, but the flame of resistance burns brighter still. You sense the shift in the air before the Persians even move. 2 days of battle have bloodied Xerxes' pride, and yet the pass still holds. He needs a way around, and one is given to him, not by strength, but by treachery. A man named Ephialtes steps forward, a Greek familiar with the land, his motives twisted by greed or bitterness. He reveals to Xerxes a secret, a narrow mountain path that winds above Thermopylae, a hidden trail through the slopes that bypasses the hot gates entirely. With this betrayal, the fate of Leonidas and his men is sealed. You follow as Persian troops, guided by Ephialtes, march through the night along the mountain track. The path is treacherous, steep, and shaded by dense forest, but it leads them toward the rear of the Greek position. At dawn, they emerge from the high ridges, ready to descend upon the defenders from behind. The pass, once impenetrable, has been undone not by force, but by deceit. Back at Thermopylae, the Greeks learn of this treachery. Scouts and Phocians stationed to guard the path raise the alarm, but they are swept aside by the Persians pressing through. Word reaches Leonidas, and you can almost see the realization settle over him like a weight of iron. He knows what it means. The prophecy has spoken, the trap has closed, and the path behind them is lost. Retreat remains possible for some, but for him and his Spartans there is no turning back. Leonidas gathers his allies. Some are dismissed, sent away to fight another day. Others, like the Thespians, refuse to leave, choosing to stand and die with the Spartans. The Thebans, caught in the moment, are compelled to remain, though their loyalty is uncertain. Among the ranks, men whisper farewells, embrace comrades, sharpen weapons one last time. The truth is clear, they will not see another sunrise. Leonidas himself moves through the camp, calm and resolute. You picture him speaking not of despair, but of honor, reminding his men why they came, why they fight, why their sacrifice matters. Each warrior understands that their deaths will echo beyond the pass, that their resistance will inspire all of Greece to rise against Persia. The prophecy of Delphi, that a Spartan king must die for Greece to be saved, now feels less like doom and more like destiny. The Persians close in from both sides, and the Greeks tighten their formation. The final stand is near. The betrayal has robbed them of victory, but not of meaning. You feel it in the earth beneath your feet, in the air thick with smoke and tension. This is no longer a battle for survival. It is a battle for memory, for legacy, for the soul of Greece. As the sun climbs higher, you know the end has begun. The wall of men at Thermopylae will not last much longer. Betrayal has broken the pass, but resolve has not broken with it. What comes next will be slaughter, but also something more. A story that will endure when the dust has long settled. A beacon of defiance carried forward by generations, yet unborn. The Greeks brace themselves, shields lifted, spears leveled, eyes fixed on the enemy. The betrayal is complete, the trap sprung, and yet their courage only hardens. Ephialtes' treachery may have opened the way, but it cannot extinguish what Leonidas and his men are about to do. The last dawn over Thermopylae breaks in shades of blood and gold. You stand among the Spartans and their allies, the air sharp with smoke and sweat, the knowledge of death pressing down like the weight of a mountain. Leonidas has made his choice, and every man who remains knows the meaning of that choice. They will not live to tell this story, but they will shape it with their sacrifice. When the Persians advance, the Spartans surge forward one last time. Shields clash, spears drive, and the narrow pass becomes a funnel of fury. You can almost hear the rhythm of their march, a steady beat against overwhelming chaos. The Spartans fight with a clarity that comes only when life is no longer the prize. Each thrust of the spear, each swing of the sword is measured, purposeful, and relentless. The Persians fall in waves, but their numbers never cease. Archers rain death from above, their arrows blotting out the light. Yet the Greeks raise their shields, overlapping in disciplined harmony, and advance step by step. They are no longer fighting to win, they are fighting to hold, to delay, to carve into memory the tale of 300 men who would not bend. Leonidas stands in the thick of it, his bronze armor glinting, his voice carrying above the din. You imagine him urging his warriors forward, reminding them of home, of wives and children, of Sparta's eternal laws. Around him, men fall, but no one falters. The Thespians fight shoulder to shoulder with the Spartans, their refusal to leave, sealing their place in history. Even the reluctant Thebans find themselves swept into the storm, their shields tested in the crush of Persian might. But betrayal has tipped the balance, and soon the Persians press in from both sides. Encircled, the Greeks form a tight circle of shields, fighting outward in every direction. Spears splinter, swords break, but hands grasp for new weapons, even stones and bare fists when steel is gone. The pass becomes a graveyard, the bodies of the fallen piling high, the ground slick with blood. At last, Leonidas himself is struck down. You see him fall not as defeat, but as fulfillment. The prophecy has come true. A Spartan king has given his life so that Greece might endure. His body becomes a symbol, and his men fight all the harder to protect it, even as they are overwhelmed. Around him, the last Spartans roar with defiance, each one choosing death over surrender, each one refusing to yield, even as the tide swallows them whole. When it ends, silence falls heavy on the battlefield. The Persians stand victorious, but the cost is etched into their pride. Xerxes has crushed 300 men, yet in doing so, he has revealed the spirit of Greece, unyielding, fierce, and immortal in memory. The sacrifice at Thermopylae is no mere loss, it is a spark, one that will burn brighter in the battles to come. Across Greece, news of the stand spreads like wildfire. Farmers, merchants, philosophers, and soldiers alike hear of Leonidas and his 300, of their courage in the face of impossible odds. The tale becomes a rallying cry, uniting city-states that once quarreled endlessly. The sacrifice at Thermopylae is not an end, but a beginning, a moment that binds a fractured people into something greater than themselves. You walk away from the past now, the echoes of battle fading, the smoke drifting into the sky. The stones of Thermopylae will hold the memory of those who stood and fell here, and their story will be told for millennia. You carry it with you too, the knowledge that sometimes the greatest victories are born from the ashes of defeat. The Spartans did not survive, but they endured in a way the Persians could never erase. Their final stand reminds you that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to face it, that freedom is worth more than life, and that sacrifice can echo louder than triumph. Thermopylae is no longer just a place. It is a lesson, a beacon, a monument carved not in stone but in blood and memory. And as long as courage is honored, the voices of Leonidas and his 300 will never be silenced. And now, as the echoes of Thermopylae fade, you can let your thoughts drift like the smoke that once rose above that narrow pass. You have walked alongside kings and warriors, felt the clash of bronze, and heard the cries of men who stood against an empire. Yet here, in the quiet after the storm, you find yourself breathing more slowly, letting the weight of their sacrifice soften into reflection. Close your eyes and imagine the hot gates, not as a battlefield, but as a place at rest. The sea still murmurs against the shore, the mountains rise in silent watch, and the stones that once drank the blood of warriors now lie cool under the sun. Time has washed away the armies, the banners, the weapons, but not the memory. The memory remains, quiet and eternal. You think of Leonidas, not as a warrior falling beneath 1,000 blades, but as a man who chose duty above all. You think of the 300, their shields locked, their voices steady, knowing the end and meeting it without fear. Their story is heavy, yet in its telling, it also brings a strange peace. It reminds you that even in defeat, there can be honor, even in loss, there can be meaning. Let that thought carry you now, as you let go of the noise of history and drift into the calm beyond it. The battles are over, the voices are quiet, and all that remains is the steady rhythm of your breath, the warmth of rest, and the knowledge that courage endures across time. The gates of Thermopylae have closed, and you can close your eyes with them.